But Abigail Huffman has been called a lot of things: brilliant, insightful, pithy, to the point. She, of course, joins us. She's an ATRI research analyst here on ATRI on the Air, another long-running segment on all things pneumonian. Oh, Dave Nemo, oh, won't you cry for me? ATRI research analysis by Abigail Huffman. We are going to be talking about the evolving driver demographics in trucking, issues and opportunities. By the way, you can find that report at truckingresearch.org. I love these kind of conversations because they really help me too, Abigail. They help me figure out who's listening and who I need to get to start listening to our show. So good morning to you.
Good morning. I'm so excited to be here and talk about this research. We do a lot of workforce development research, and this is one of our latest and greatest. So excited to dive deep in with you.
Let me, before we kind of get to that, we've done this before, but, now that we're on a new platform and new friends showing up, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you circuitously end up in the wonderful world of ATRI.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am from Iowa, went to Iowa State University, studied theater and statistics. I know we both share a love for theater. And found my way to ATRI shortly after I graduated. Just really wanted to stay in the data world, and well, heck, I have not looked back. Trucking is pretty exciting. It's a really great community, and just excited to really research. So, yeah, that's my story.
It's really funny. As I eat my cereal for breakfast, Dre and I were talking before you came on. Dre missed an opportunity to play Sky Masterson, and he is still smarting over not being in Guys and Dolls. And
be a lady, man.
And we have Ruta Lee at the end of the show today, who gave what many people consider to be the definitive performance of the unsinkable Molly Brown. And so she'll be joining us to kind of talk about her tribute to Neil Sedaka. So we got a little bit of theater. We're going to open up with a theater lady, and we're going to close with a theater lady. Okay. Let's get to the point.
That's the way to do it.
That's always the way to do it. Evolving truck driver demographics, issues, and opportunities. All right. Give us the 30,000-foot view of what the report is, and then we'll get into the details, okay?
Yeah, absolutely. The report really does two things. It takes a look at the chronological changes in truck driver demographics. We pull from different survey data, government data. We did a new survey and just really looked at how have demographics evolved over the last 2 decades, and where are we today and how did we get here? The second phase of the research looks at pathways into truck driving careers, and these are pathways that parts of the industry are already tapping into, but they're definitely underserved and might benefit from the opportunities that trucking provides. And those two populations are foster care youth, as well as people who have touched the criminal justice system in one way or another. In our report, we refer to them as justice-involved individuals. And so the report offers a way for the industry to kind of pick it up and say, how can we integrate these individuals? How can we better offer opportunities and make that transition a little bit smoother, just to help them get up on their feet if they're not, and just really be a great resource.
Let me say something about the terminology for justice-involved individual, because I want to get a sense of the scope of this. Because simply saying, incarcerated individuals, are you guys including like people who come out of diversion programs? Because there's a connective tissue here. And by the way, this is something I actually, in one of my past lives, I've always said that if you really want to get to know the world, go every place in the world where you can find a job. In my youth, I guess you could call it, I worked in an area where we looked at a lot of people who were in foster care. We looked at a lot of people who were, going through adoption processes, came in from broken families and all that stuff. And it seems to me that when you say the people who come in from the justice system, you don't just mean prison, right? You mean parolees. You mean people who have been given suspended sentences. You mean anybody who literally has a certain amount of limitations based on their past criminal history or their past, I guess we could call misadventure history. And that trucking provides a route for them if more people understand how to kind of go about the business of onboarding them. Is that fair? It's a big picture thing, right?
Absolutely. It's kind of an all-encompassing term because people use the term criminal, inmate, convict, prisoner, offender. And this is just kind of a more humanizing term, as well as it encompasses incarceration, parole, probation, whether they did a night in jail, things like that.
And it's funny, too, because not unintentionally, because you guys are so well-meaning over there, what I think is really interesting in regards to that is, so a kid ends up in foster care. He ends up in a diversion program because he has no solid home life. He ends up then in the criminal justice system. And, the idea that you're looking at two places. One, what is going on? One, you're looking over in the direction of where those kids are coming from, but you also want to make sure that you get to them before they become the second kind of demographic unit you guys are looking at. I just wanted to kind of unpack all those terms, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And actually, when we kicked off this research, we wanted to make sure we considered other populations as well. So we considered military, we considered homeless. And with the homeless population, we didn't go down that route just because we did see some overlap with the foster care as well as justice involved. If you were to look at a Venn diagram of foster care and justice involved youth, there's some statistics that say there's quite a bit of overlap between those three. And so in a way, both of these pathways kind of touch on homelessness indirectly.
Yeah, and once again, like I said, guys, a lot of people think that we're talking in euphemisms. We're not, because what a lot of people don't understand is the majority of people in the country who fall under the term homeless, many of them have jobs. The majority of homeless people have jobs. I don't know if many people out there in the country know that. Often it is families, sometimes broken families, single parent, living out of their car, living out of their truck. So the idea is to create these kind of umbrella terms that incorporate every variation of that. Sorry, I wanted to do that because you guys do a really good job in your reports of unpacking both, making sure everybody knows the acronyms that come fast and furious through any ATRI report, but also making sure the terminology you guys use. That's the thing about research, is that it's not like reading a fictional book or even reading like, a spirited essay. What you're reading is an analysis, and you have to kind of lay out your terms and lay out the points of engagement. Okay, so we go back to go forward. Part of what you did was take a look at previous demographics in order to kind of figure out where we're going next. Tell us what the past looks like, and then we'll kind of pivot into the future.
Yeah, the first big finding is that we've got an aging workforce. I don't know if I can confidently say this is a finding because since I joined the industry in 2022, people have been talking about an aging workforce, but we've seen a shift from 45 being the average age about 15 years ago to 47. And even in the surveys that we do, the average is even higher than that. And so as this average age shifts higher, the industry really does need to think about what are some creative and innovative ways to try to connect with younger drivers to start to replace the individuals that are going to be retiring. I mean, it's truly just a matter of time. So the report really tries to harp on some of the research we released back in 2022 on integrating younger adults into the industry. There's a lot of generational differences that have to be accounted for. Gen Zs do not operate the same way Gen X or millennials do. So you just got to understand those generational differences.
I'm actually going to bring up something that may bother some Gen Zs out there. It's not a critique, by the way. We've all been hearing about the Gen Z stare, right? You know what I'm talking about?
The Gen Z stare, you said?
Yeah, the Gen Z stare. You've heard of this, correct?
I actually haven't.
Oh, wow. Well, good. You've actually been mercifully spared a lot of social media nonsense. There is a thing that
I'm not on social.
Oh, you're very smart. There's a lot of people out there who say that there is a certain level of people skills that certain Gen Z employees in the workforce lack. And I mean lacking people skills, not work ethic, not a commitment to the job, but literally people will talk to them and try to engage in conversation or in project management programs. And rather than even giving what they call active listening, where you kind of say, yes, I understand, they sit there with stare on their face. And I am wondering, in many ways, if part of the problem is that trucking, for all of its isolation in the cab, is such a social animal. On the docks, in the shipyards, every place that you load, there's a certain level of, despite the fact that you get a long time to be left alone, you also have to deal with people. And I'm wondering if the kids that came out of the isolation of COVID, in some ways, are worried about the level of socialization they might have to engage in. I just wanted to kind of go on that little particular rabbit hole. But what I wanted to ask you with the 45 to 47 jump, that's a big jump from the last time we talked about this. People think it's not. Was there any evidence that companies are recruiting older people, having understood that there's a graying in of the industry, or is it literally an aging population in the workforce that is going to phase itself out and we're going to be left with a giant gap? As you know, we're not
We
big believers in the shortage here. We don't believe in the driver shortage for the reason other people believe in it. But I'm just curious, are you worried that it's a disappearing group of truck drivers and not just getting older?
We actually didn't really dive into the recruitment side of things. This data point comes from the Census Bureau, and so they're literally documenting while the rest of the labor force is kind of still hovering in the lower 40s. We've seen this pretty, like you said, dramatic jump, and so it is a way. I guess it's a sign that we need to find ways to really connect with younger drivers, and just in conversation with fleets. There's definitely efforts happening, and maybe we have some bias in the folks that we talk to, but there's certainly efforts from the recruitment side to try to target younger individuals, whether it's through social media, whether it's through targeted campaigns. But you might be onto something. Maybe there's this misconception about the communication that's required. I mean, before I joined the industry, I didn't really think about the communication that was required for a truck driver. You think about, okay, you're behind the wheel for 8 hours. You don't think that, oh, you have to stop to docks. You have to communicate with the people you're handing your shipments off to, and so that might be an opportunity for continued education.
Yeah, and the reason I asked, by the way, is I did read the report. I want to make it clear. Like I said, and I know what the focus of what you guys are kind of doing here. I just was like wondering, it opens up the possibilities of other research. And as you pointed out, one of the other important things about the research, as you just pointed out, is that the rest of the American workforce is not aging. There would be less of a okay, let's just say that it was 45 and it jumped to 47, and let's say that it was 42 for the average American worker and jumped to 44. That actually would be less concerning. It would just mean that people are working longer. It just would mean that more older people are staying in the workforce longer. But this seems to be very, very isolated in regards to trucking. And we can put that one to bed really quickly. But that's kind of the feeling that this really is the possibility of a growing problem, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And if it's not addressed soon, who knows what the ramifications would be in 5, 10 years.
Well, and the other thing is, too, and this is once again down the rabbit hole with Jimmy Mack, the idea that a lot of these people is, look, I get a text message on a regular basis from a driver out there who's in his mid-70s. And Dre knows who I'm talking about. He is in terrific shape. He's in terrific health. He has openly told me and other people point blank that when he can't do the job, he will stop doing the job. He just enjoys it that much. But the other risk that all of this runs is the fact that we get a group of men and women out there. I mean, everybody knows Candy Bass, and Candy Bass
Oh yeah.
would be the first person to tell you she ain't young. And it's okay. I feel very safe knowing that Candy Bass is out there, that Junker is out there, that K-Bar is out there, that a lot of people in their 70s are out there driving and doing well. But there's a point where what we don't want is octogenarians behind the wheel of trucks. I think I've met one man who at 81 was still driving a truck. This becomes almost a safety issue after a while. And that is not ageism, by the way, guys. At some point, I don't want my dad driving anymore. I took the keys away from him. And at some point, no matter how sharp you are, things begin to slow down at a certain point. Okay. So let's talk about ways forward. Let's talk about, you guys are always proposing stuff. You talked about with incarceration. You talked about the idea of people who are in the justice system, who have had run-ins with the justice system, and foster care. What are the strategies that you guys are looking at? What seems to be effective for onboarding these folks?
Are you talking about the younger folks or the
Yeah,
pathways that we're looking into?
the younger folks. I mean, because we're talking about not just the foster element, but also just the younger people in general. What are some of the strategies? Social media comes up a lot, but that's a big term. So what are we looking at here, Abigail?
Yeah, and as part of this research, we look at other jobs within transportation. We look at people who are delivery drivers, they're stockers, working in warehouses, just other roles in transportation. And oftentimes those roles have younger average ages. So that might be an opportunity for companies to have a pathway from, okay, we'll hire you when you're 18 and you're graduating from high school, but we'd love to transition you into a driving role by the time you turn 21 and get your Class A CDL. Creating that pipeline, which in some cases it does exist at carriers, but it's definitely not across the board. And creating that clear pipeline that people understand, okay, I can't drive interstate right now as I'm graduating high school, but I can in a couple of years. And that experience working in the warehouse, working and seeing the other side of the trucking business might make the individual more excited about the opportunities that trucking provides. So that's definitely one thing that we looked at. The thing with foster care that's really interesting is a lot of times states have rules and laws where once they turn 18, they age out of the system. And so making sure that that pipeline is there as soon as they turn 18, whether they're a high school and college, whether they had to drop out at one point, whether they've already graduated, whenever that is, creating that visibility, saying, hey, our industry has really great opportunities. We can get you up on your feet. We can be the support that is needed right now, is certainly an opportunity.
You know, it's interesting, Abigail. I've told this story on the air before. I know a lot of listeners know it. One of the most joyful things I've done over the last 2 or 3 years, Claire and I currently have a residence in California. There's a young man that lives in an apartment complex with his wife and children. He had worked for UPS since he was 18. For 10 years on the floor in the warehouse, and we went to a party. They rented the little cabana they have at the pool, and they rented the cabana to throw a big party that we were invited to. He had been promoted to becoming a driver. 10 years on the floor, he had been
Wow.
promoted to becoming a driver. And in many ways, you know, you guys look at other professions as well too, because some of them provide the wisdom of, I guess in the report you can make a case too, what are some of these other transportation fields doing that are allowing people actually to stick around in the industry? How are they, you know, you're looking at other models of retention as well. How do we retain people? Because often people will take a job and it's not their thing. And so this in many
Mhm.
ways can kind of provide a model for the beginnings of retention strategies as well. I mean, you gotta look hard, but you know what I'm talking about here, don't you?
Oh, yeah. I'm just thinking that everybody is different. Some people can work the same job for 30, 35 years and they're fine. Other people want to switch it up every couple of years, and that's where maybe this is an opportunity. You have somebody who, they've been a loyal employee for a couple of years. Maybe throw out the opportunity of, hey, you've liked this, maybe we can consider this other opportunity. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I'm just going to kind of give you this too from the report. I wrote down a couple of quotes here. While individual companies can track changes in their own driver workforce, the industry as a whole faces challenge in monitoring broader demographic shifts, which, by the way, is why this report exists. General labor market trends do not always translate directly to trucking due to the industry's unique characteristics. And what you guys did is that in many ways, this is an attempt to look at, you know, I hate to kind of say what's the pitch here in regards to the conclusions, but you guys are attempting to kind of not only encourage people to read the report, but to dig deeper into the data in surrounding industries and ones that are close to kind of get a sense of this is as much a story about retention as it is a story of recruiting new people into the industry. It's not a matter of getting people, it's a matter of keeping them as well, correct?
Yeah, and that's kind of how we frame the driver shortage when we mention it in this report. We want to focus on, okay, once you effectively get somebody in the door, what are you doing to make them satisfied? What are you doing to listen to them, what they want, their needs, what they want 5 years from now, and making sure you've got them today, but you've also got them in 5, 10 years, and they're still happy to be there.
Yeah, and that's a big deal too. And by the way, guys, if you get the 65-page report, there are a number of really important uh, charts in here. And I'm just going to kind of let our listeners know, many of whom don't have the time to read these reports. Although in the case of this one, if in fact you run a small fleet, if you're having recruiting issues, I can't emphasize this enough. Point four, by the way, which by the way falls into some of our friends, the silent generation, people who fall into my mom and dad's category. Only zero point 0.4 of the entire truck driver population is in the silent generation. Um, Baby boomers make up 20.7%, Generation X 40.8%, Millennials 30%, and Generation Z 7.5%. Of the two numbers, the Z and the Millennials, which number is more concerning to you guys from a point of getting new people into the industry? And I hate to kind of simplify the question like that. For me, it's the 7.5. I wish it would be a little less boomer and a little more Z is kind of my feeling, because at literally 1/5 of every driver behind the wheel of a truck in America, essentially 1 out of every 5, is in fact somebody who is a baby boomer, which means they're collecting Social Security if they want to as well, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the percentage I would say as well. If it would be nice if this was a little bit more equal of a distribution and a little less emphasis on baby boomers. But I think you mentioned something earlier that's really important. You've got people in their 70s who are driving and excelling. It's just a matter of knowing, hey, my time is my time, and I'm done. But I think you're right. Gen Z, there's obviously a gap happening right there. Granted, part of the Gen Z population is not old enough to drive a semi truck class A interstate. So there's a little bit of a reason why I think that's so small, but there's definitely room for improvement there.
Yeah, and by the way, Abigail made a really good point, by the way. We are not saying that boomers should not be driving trucks. We're talking about percentages here. That's a very different conversation. The idea is that we don't have, I have, by the way, like I said, some of the boomers I know that are behind the wheel of the truck right now are spectacular drivers. Paige and Candy Bass, Paige and Junker. But what I'm talking about here is the fact that, yeah, that 7.5 is skewered a little bit because we're counting people, 18 to 21 in that Z cohort. But that number, in regards to the vast number of truck drivers actually falling into Generation X, the majority of there, means essentially we're talking 45 to about 60 to about 65. That's the sweet spot, and given the fact that the average age is 47.5, that and continuing to grow. Okay. With that in mind, can you kind of give us the conclusions that you and Dan came up with here? It's a great piece of work, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah, we really just focused on let's get innovative on how to better connect and recruit and retain younger drivers. It really just focuses on how do we get them in the door? Can we, reframe recruitment narratives? Can we think about how to connect with them earlier on in their careers? Are we getting into high schools and making sure they have exposure to the industry? Do they have a true understanding of what the industry entails? How can we modernize the industry image so it fits the needs of Gen Zs in particular, even millennials? It wouldn't hurt to, have more millennials too. And then just something that younger folks love, mentorships. They love that networking opportunity. Yeah, it's easy to pick up your phone and stare at your phone and scroll on social media forever, but having those connections in person, mentorship where you understand and you learn from somebody who's been in the industry for some time is a really great way to give that exposure to younger people. And so saying up front, hey, this is really important to us that you get the skills, you get the training that you need to set you up for success, hopefully have a long-term career in trucking. That's really important to our company, and we'll provide that for you.
By the way, I'm going to say a couple of names: Lindsay Trent at Next Gen Trucking, and we got a couple of other people we've had on Education Station. This is really cool, by the way. There are a number of supply chain programs in the high school right now, just like the arts programs, where they take their core curriculum in the morning and then get on a bus and go to a supply chain center where they learn the ins and outs of the transportation industry and how all of that stuff works. And that might be the only way, with the fall off of the family farm and the fall off of people being drafted. When you get drafted, you learn how to drive a piece of machinery, whether you want to or not, which actually gives you many more people to recruit from. I just want to give people a sense of the in-depth analysis here. Indicative of the increase in average age, the percentage of drivers aged 35 to 54% increased by 10.6 percentage points, while those under 35 increased by 2 percentage points, and drivers 55 and older increased by 8.6 percentage points. I realize the Z stuff skewers, but when I say those numbers to you, do you see that as a problem that needs to be addressed?
Yeah, I mean, it's great that middle region is shrinking, but in terms of that middle region shrinking, it should be going both younger and older when a vast majority of that is shifting older. I think that's where the concern lies. Yes, it's exciting to see a little jump in younger drivers, but it's also at the same time like, okay, well, we're obviously not replacing some of these younger drivers at the rate we probably should be.
And by the way, and thank you for that, by the way. That's a really great point, because what we should see is 35 and under increasing at a higher level and being kind of commiserate with the 65 and older generation, and that middle number should shrink a little bit. The middle number got bigger and it skewed upward, and that is the number that kind of grabs our attention. Okay, that's enough of that. Labor Day weekend is coming up here. We got about 2 minutes left. What are you doing with your weekend, Abigail? Please tell me you're not researching. I know you stay off social media, but you're doing something fun, right?
I am. I'm actually going up north to northern Minnesota and hiking for 3 days at different parks, and just excited to be outside as fall is coming. So it's
Are
going to be a good time.
you're from Minnesota?
I'm actually from Iowa, but I've been up in Minnesota now for 3 years.
That's what I meant. I mean, you call Minnesota home, correct?
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, by the way, anybody that lives in Minneapolis, if you see them, if you know anybody in Minneapolis, you tell them everybody around the country, especially at Road Gang Radio, loves them. Okay?
Absolutely.
Thank you so
Well, do you have any fun plans for the weekend?
I actually do. I am, I have weekends off for the first time in almost a decade on a regular basis, and my brother Ryan has two wonderful, beautiful boys, one 11 and the other one 8, and we are going to go see the Fantastic Four. And I'm taking them there. So I am really excited about that. I'm a bit of a movie junkie, and that's not what I would pick, but that's absolutely what they would pick. And given their reaction to Superman, I'm actually really stoked about taking them to see it. Thank you for asking, by the way, Abigail.
Yeah, absolutely. Have a great time.
You too. And by the way, have a great weekend. Of course, our friends at ATRI, you can go to truckingresearch.org. The entire 65-page report is there, able to be downloaded for free. Hey, guys, trust me, even if you're just an individual driver, you're going to want to read this report. It is eye-opening, and it might help you become a better ambassador for getting younger people into the industry. Please tell Rebecca Brewster we said hello.
Will do. Thank you.
Thank you.